Hi everyone, it's Megan Anderson, and today we are going to have the September live video chat Q&A for Pocket Your Year, a pocket scrapbooking year-long scrapbooking course, though this chat is open to everyone. So if you are not part of the course and you're interested in checking out what it's about, there is more about it in a link in the YouTube comments section. If you're in the class, you might be watching from the classroom page or on YouTube. You can ask questions and comment in the comments in the workshop. You can ask questions in the Facebook group on the thread about this video chat, or you can ask questions in the YouTube comments. So I'll be checking in all three places, which kind of like makes me look awkward as I'm reading and clicking around, but it makes it easier for everyone, and you are able to choose the method that works the best for you. And today I thought that we'd focus on talking about just pocket scrapbooking in general. As always, if you have questions or comments about that, we're currently on our photography unit, though the big video for that is coming up the last day of the month, which I believe is Wednesday, if that's September 30th. I'm pretty sure. And we're all still focused in the class on the last month's unit in August, which was 31 days of challenges. And there were 31 video challenges for pocket scrapbooking, and half of them also had process videos. But we made I made a class goal to get 500 total layouts shared for August and September to help motivate everyone with that unit and with the July catching up unit. And just a reminder for you, for those of you in the course, you don't have to have your spreads be for the challenges for them to count. Anything new that you've made in August and September counts towards our total 500 layouts shared. The stuff that I made for the challenges unit shared, and the stuff I've made since. So I still have a lot more things to upload. So like 100, probably maybe 100 of the 500 are probably coming from me. And people asked for some clarification in the Facebook group, and I'll go ahead and repeat that here in case you didn't see it, on just kind of how I'm counting, where to count. Entries towards the 500 layout shared only count if they are in the classroom. And that is just because if I have one central place to count all of the entries, I'm less likely to get mixed up and double count things or miss anything. So only the layout shared in the classroom. If and you can really comment on any post with challenges, though it's kind of best to find one that correlates. That way, if someone is reading a post later on, they can look at your layout, or whatever you've linked, and that can help inspire them. So if you can find something related in the class, then do that. But if you can't, then that's fine. And if you're sharing multiple spreads in one comment that you're, like, say, linking to on Facebook or something, please put the number of threads that you want to count for that, or the number of pages you want to count for that comment in the comment, and that'll kind of help me speed things up when I'm recounting. And then I've also had questions about what counts as one. So I'm thinking of them really similar to the way that I think about traditional layouts. If it's a double page spread that goes together, then it counts as one. And if it's a single page, then it counts as one. So for me, my weekly pages that I make that are kind of a week in a glance would be one entry, and the extra thematic things that I do, like a reads page where it's just one page but it's all one subject matter just on that one page, that counts as one. And then inserts also count as one, because someone could make a weekly spread with like 5 inserts, and we want that to count. We don't want that to all be one. So double pages are one, single pages are one, and each insert is one. So if that helps you figure out how many entries you're contributing, that is fantastic. And I think just to kind of, I think that we're about at 250 out of 500 so far. And I know that that seems like we're never going to be able to make it, but people are uploading like 20 or 30 spreads all at once. And so a lot of people will be saving them for the end. And so we will be able to really get our numbers up from what I can tell just towards the end. And I also wanted to say that I'm not just cutting things off at on September 30th for counting, because I realized that, you know, it's about the spreads that we've made in August and September. And if you're hurrying and like really inspired and getting a lot of things made September 30th, then you might not have time to take pictures of those spreads and share them by September 30th. So I'll probably go for our final count over the weekend. So that's October 3rd or 4th is when I'll kind of cut things off and decide what our final count is. And for those of you that aren't in the class, I just realized that I didn't share kind of why we're doing the 500 spreads challenge. And the workshop is a year-long class, so there's 12 different units. And if we can reach 500 spreads collectively, I'll be adding a bonus free unit so there'll be a 13th unit that is a bonus unit. So that is just kind of a fun thing. So I have a couple questions on YouTube that I'll start with. And Amy says, do the pages that we entered into hashtag PYY on Instagram count towards the 500? Firstly, the hashtag for the class is the full name of the class. So it's Pocket Your Year. It's hashtag Pocket Your Year. Let me make sure I'm not lying. Yeah, hashtag Pocket Your Year. So all one word. So Amy might not have seen everything if you hashtagged the PYY. And I think I commented to you in the class when I was counting up last night. But you can share them wherever. You can share them on your blog or on Flickr or on Facebook or on Instagram. But just, I'm only counting from the comments in the class. So if you say, hey, I shared 6 layouts on my Instagram account and here's my username, then that counts. You don't have to actually upload them in the comments in the class, so you can. I mean, it's really fun to look through and scroll down and see a bunch of extra layouts down there for inspiration, but you don't have to do that. But it's hard for me to use hashtags to count things up because not everybody is using Instagram. And then if I try to count things from Instagram, I might accidentally be counting things twice because someone might have already entered through another method. So if you could just, in any comment in the classroom, say, I shared 8 on Instagram, then that counts and is helpful. Laura says, hello from the UK. Hello, Laura. And I know that we had a bunch of questions in the Facebook group, so we can kind of start off with those. Let's see. Anna asked several questions. So there's 4, so we can get started on those while you guys get in questions. And they don't have to be questions specifically, just topics that you want to talk about a little bit. You don't have to phrase them as questions. This isn't Jeopardy. That was a lame joke. Okay, Anna says, thoughts on sharing your own children, not the foster baby, on the internet? I shared quite a bit when my daughter was a baby, but now when she's about to turn 3, I'm more selective for unknown reasons and would appreciate some input. So I know I say this a lot, but this is one of those personal preference things where it all comes down to what you personally are comfortable with. I know I see a lot of people criticizing scrapbookers and like mommy bloggers for sharing or oversharing their kids. And a lot of those people seem to to think it's dangerous. And I think a lot of times that's kind of a generational thing. Like my generation as a millennial, we don't typically think of it as dangerous, but a lot of the older generation does. And for me, I don't see the danger statistically in it. So like there's a risk with everything that you do with your children. But as for the internet, like the kind of I don't know, the most common thing people worry about is maybe stalking. But my husband, he's a software architect now, but when we were in college, he worked in network security. And so I know that there isn't really a such thing as private information on the internet. And there's a lot, even if you think that you don't share things on the internet, there's a lot of information about you there that people can easily find, even through legal means. So I don't like that stuff worries me a lot more than things that I'm choosing to share. But if somebody wants to be able to find my address, then a picture of my kid is not going to be what makes or breaks them finding my address. And then my degree is in sociology. So I know that, like, even though, especially in America, we have kind of this stranger danger myth. If someone is going to hurt your kid, it's almost always someone that you know, and someone that you think is safe but isn't safe. So strangers on the internet aren't really my safety concern for my children. So that's kind of one consideration, is the, like, do you feel safe? And I think that I do feel safe sharing things about my life and my kids' lives on the internet. But the thing that I mostly consider is my kids' privacy and how they are going to be perceived. And it's kind of new territory because this amount of sharing hasn't happened in previous generations. So when my kids and their peers go, when they're adults, and apply for jobs, employers could, if they wanted to, find a lot of personal information about them, not just from their adulthood, but kind of from their lives going back. And that is going to be a common thing that not just like kids, bloggers and scrapbookers, people who are sharing their kids on the internet that way, are going to be dealing with. It'll be, you know, just think about the amount of things that people share, say, on Facebook, just with their family and friends. So there's going to be kind of this portfolio of life things that are shared. And that's, you know, whether we think that's good or bad as a society is definitely a legitimate debate, but it is at this point in my culture, at least, normal. So it's not like they're going to be the only ones that have that kind of information available, like cute things that they said when they're a kid. So it won't be abnormal for them. So I don't think that it would in any way hold them back. But that being said, I do keep that in mind. So I don't share things about my kids that I think would potentially embarrass them later. Like if they're in 6th grade and someone is bullying them and is mean, like there's not going to be anything that they're going to be able to find through me that they could like print out and plaster on the walls at school, or like send in a mass test that could like shame my kid. And so even though I do kind of share like some real life stuff, like I've shared, for instance, that Eliza struggles with spelling. I struggle with spelling. It's a family thing. And it is like the bane of my existence studying for spelling tests with her. It's really frustrating for all of us. And we realize that it's necessary, but we don't like it. So like, you'll be able to find weaknesses of her, but I'm not making fun of her about it. I'm like praising her for how hard that she works for overcoming that weakness, but I'm not going to share things that could be potentially embarrassing. And I might scrapbook some of that stuff that might be like a little potentially embarrassing, but I'm not going to be sharing that on the internet. And then my other thing is that as my kids get older, they get to decide what I share and what I don't share. So Jonas is 4, and at this point he'll like tell me to share things, or he'll ask me to take pictures and things. So he's starting to like care a little bit, but he really loves getting his photo taken. And for Eliza, like she likes being shared as well. But I always make sure to check with her that she's okay with a photo or story being shared before I share it. So if she's on a Project Life page, or she's in an Instagram photo, Eliza has approved that ahead of time. And so I end up sharing a little bit less of her, not because she vetoes things, but just because it's an extra step in the process. So if I'm like working on a page in the morning that I want to share on my blog that day, it's not going to be of Eliza because she's at school and she would have to approve it. So anyway, that was a really long-winded answer to that question, but that's sort of my perspective as I see it. And I think that it will kind of change over time. And letting my children, especially as they get older, have control over their image and what is shared about them publicly, I feel will make it so that they're more likely to be willing participants in memory keeping, because I wouldn't want them to be uncomfortable and not want their memories to be recorded anymore because they're afraid of them getting shared. So as my kid, like when my kids are teenagers, half of my scrapbooking might not be shareable, and I'm okay with that because that's not the main reason why I'm doing it. And for the stuff that's my job part, I can either blur things out or find other things to scrapbook about and just not share the things that are about my kids. So I love making sure that they have choice in that. And I also remind them. So I hated getting my picture taken as a teenager. So there's not a whole lot of me. I mean, I definitely have a lot more than some people have, but I didn't like it. I felt very uncomfortable with it, and I regret that. So I make sure that my kids also know that I regret that, so they can always decide later when they're not in the awkward phase, if they don't want their photos taken. So I'm okay with kind of encouraging them to want to have their photo taken, even if they're not necessarily comfortable with it, but I'm not okay with sharing it if they're not comfortable with it. So that is that question. Oh, and Anna says, my hair looks really pretty today. Thank you, Anna. This is what taking a shower and finger brushing it looks like. I don't like ever fix my hair. I'm actually really, I'm really impossible when it comes to that. That is not amongst my strengths, any beauty related whatevers things. So it's really like neglect that makes my hair look nice, which is lucky for me. Eva says hello from Sweden. Amy has a question about the pages that she made for Week in the Life. Will those count also? And yes, they will. So they'd all, like, if you're any pages that you're making count, like it doesn't, I wouldn't count Week in the Life whole as one. I'd count each spread as one. And I finished up some of the spreads that I made that I started last year for 2014 Week in the Life. I finished them up in August, and I counted those in the classroom, kind of, I think like 6, because one of them I had already finished last year. And then I'm working on photos for my Week in the Life right now, so I don't know if I'm going to get any of those done before the 30th, but I might be counting some of those with you. I know Anna had a bunch of other questions, but I might skip around a little bit. Okay. So the second question that Anna asked earlier, which getting in some questions early is really helpful for me as we kind of wait for everybody to get here. Anna says, I'm sure I'm not alone in admiring some of the big names, Ali Edwards, for instance, when it comes to designing pocket page spreads. Who do you admire and why? Ali Edwards is definitely someone I admire as well. And I think I'm inspired more about her attitude towards memory keeping and kind of her philosophy than necessarily her style, which I also love. But usually when I'm inspired by other scrapbookers, it's less about specific design ideas and more kind of more about the ways of going about documenting, if that makes sense. And so that's where I get a lot of my ideas, just because by now I'm kind of solid in my design. So I might pick up little ideas from people here and there, but I've just kind of found my style. So I'm not going to scrap lift as often. But when I was first learning how to scrapbook, that is definitely how I found my style, by scrap lifting when I was doing traditional pages, especially by scrap lifting other people. So I would try out different techniques and styles until I figured out what I liked the most, and then it just kind of evolved from there. So that is a great way to play around and learn and stretch yourself and see what you like. In addition to Allie Edwards, I really loved Elise Blaha Kripe's pocket scrapbooking when she was still doing it. And also Annette Herring and Trisha Harrison. And I worked with all three of them in big picture classes, workshops. And so, but they were in those workshops because I love their scrapbooking. It's not just like I'm just shouting out my friends. But I do pay a lot more attention to my friends' pocket scrapbooking, just because I love it as a way to know what's going on in their lives. So my friend Kristen from RE Kristen, I love the way that she does her pocket spreads, and I love that the way that she combines different cards together in a way that I usually don't. Like, she sees things that go together that I wouldn't normally think of going together, and I think it's pretty fantastic. And a lot of the times she's not using very many photos, so that's one of the reasons that she can get like lots of cards on there to all work together. So I also love looking at her pages for both the design and because I just like seeing what's going on. I think that Kelly Perky's Project Lifestyle is very interesting. She's doing a 6x12 this year, and there aren't as many cards in her pages. She does a lot of stamping and journaling directly on photos, and I think that that is really neat. Though with all of the traveling that she does, I'm like so amazed that for every week she picks down into one 12x12 page. I know she makes mini books and things, but even for my highlights, like I'm just not good at, or I just don't want to narrow things down that far. So those are some of my favorites. I also like Kaylee Gray a lot, and I'm sure I'm forgetting things. I don't want to like leave people out or anything, but that's just kind of the top off the top of my head. And I'm also finding that a lot of the pocket scrapbookers that I like are blogging a lot less. So then I kind of just catch things on Instagram because their pages aren't popping up in my blog reader. And I like that. I like being able to look through on Instagram, but I also, because it's so much, I have a little bit more trouble remembering what goes with who or whom, what goes with whom that way. So it's harder for me to find and become fans of newer people through Instagram because it's just kind of visual overload, and I'm not sitting and reading a whole big description from them and hearing them speak in their voice. So that is to say, if you have favorite pocket scrapbooking bloggers, I would really like to hear about that, because I need more. I need more people. Yay. Okay, let's see. No. Okay, Jennifer asks, how much do you think you make and don't share? I think I share 99% of my pages somewhere online, but I'm neglecting people who don't want their pictures and their stories out there. Thinking about making it a resolution to scrap more that I don't share next year. So that amount has changed because we do have a foster baby, and there's so that's just a huge part of my life that I can't talk about, because it's not only not sharing photos of her, information about her, but it's also I'm not sharing like all of the process that goes into being a foster parent, which is a lot. So I don't know. So a lot of the weekly spreads I'm still sharing, and I'm just blurring a lot of that stuff out. But then the things that I'm making that are specifically about her, like the same kinds of pages that I make for my kids, like for Eliza and Jonas, I make like lists of things near their birthdays, just of what they're like right now. And so I did that for her as well, or like just kind of milestone pages or other I don't know, just like the kind of thematic stuff that I do for Eliza and Jonas, I also do for her. So I'm not sharing any of the stuff that is only about her. And then I also had a lot of like really complicated extended family things going on last year. So like October to December last year, most of that I haven't shared either. So I don't know what percentage it would be. It might be like a third. But then it's also, it takes me longer to get to that stuff sometimes because I do have things like I'm going to prioritize things that I need to make for work and the things that are most important to me. But like I feel like I'm running behind all the time lately. So like I just made 10 traditional layouts and 10 pocket spreads for a class that I'm going to have upcoming soon. And like the baby's in some of those and she's blurred out, but none of those are specifically about the baby. So I was like, hey, I need to make 20 layouts this week. And I did a lot of my kind of catching up kind of things for those layouts. But then I ended up not catching up the stuff about the baby because I was making those specifically for a class. So sometimes it takes me a little bit longer, though I do try to like set aside some time to not share things. But yeah, usually if it, other than the baby, it's people who don't like their photo being shared online. I also do that. So like I have pages about like friends that I have that just aren't comfortable with it, and I don't share those, or family members. And if it's like kind of the more negative things, the more hard things, but it's not my problem, it's like someone else's problem, but it's affecting me, then I might document that in some way, but I'm not going to share it because that's like not my story to tell. So yeah, like a third, which now you guys know that I'm even crazier than you thought I was because I make a ton. Let's see. Anna had a few more questions. I'm going to go to those before Jennifer's other one. She says pre-designed cards or make your own, and she thinks I know the answer to this one. So I use a lot of pre-designed cards because I do want to document so much. Using the pre-designed cards is a little faster. So if I'm making my own, it's like specifically because I feel like playing around and I want to be artsy and not necessarily because it is going to be on, or because it's going to enhance the page, or sometimes it's because I don't have a card that is kind of what I'm visualizing. So usually if it's because I don't have the kind of thing that I need and not because I want to play around, that I go to stamping because it's kind of the quickest way for me to control like the color and the design of something. Though I am working on my digital design skills, and I'm going to try to make some Nerd Nest theme or Nerd Nest branded card packs, small ones, and those will be sold in RU Kristen's shop if I ever finish making them. But that's kind of like a still under wraps kind of thing, so I don't have a release date or anything for that because I'm still getting into the groove of it, and I don't want to start doing it until I know that I can kind of keep doing it on a schedule, and I can't do that right now. So I am working on some of those. And the kinds of cards I'm making are the kinds of cards that I want to use but have not found other places. Pre-designed cards or make your own. So I also like sometimes using traditional scrapbooking products to make my own cards. So that's not like making the card from the ground up, but it is like maybe layering a few things to get it to work for what I need. And then Anna's last question was, and any hope of getting close to the 500 spreads. So I think we're about halfway there at this point, and we talked about that a little bit also. Check on YouTube for comments. Amy says, have you decided what the class for next year will be? I so want it to be at the very least monthly again. So that's actually something that I wanted to talk to you guys, you all about. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. So I know that I want to do another Pocket Your Year class next year. And I know that I don't want to rehash the same material. So the 2015 material, we're going to kind of like chop it up by theme and make it be a lot of self-paced mini classes. So if you or anyone that you know is interested in the class content, this is going to be the cheapest way to get it all together, because separately they'll cost more than what the class costs. But I figure that breaking them up separately, if someone wants to join in 2015 next year and wants to learn about something that we've already covered, then they can buy that specific unit and go through that self-paced, just so that we can get advanced and always moving forward. And some of the stuff we'll kind of want to recover every year. Like we'll probably start off 2015 with another planning unit, because it's a good idea to plan before you get started for the year. And so it'll have new things in there, but it'll still be the same theme. But other than things that really make sense, hitting them up every year, I want it to be different. But I don't know if I want it to be set up the same as it is this year yet. I don't know if I want to do the monthly videos and the weekly sparks. I don't know if that is the most helpful format for you guys. I know a lot of people I want to cover everything and I get excited about it, but it's hard for me to keep up with that and keep on schedule. And it can be hard for you guys to have time to go through it. So I might keep it the same, but I might consider doing less content and lowering the price of the course. But I'm working on outlines for what the content next year would look like. And so I kind of have two alternate directions to go, and I just need to make a decision and decide which way is best. But any input from you all is really going to be important for me making that decision. So knowing if the weekly Spark posts are helpful, or if you prefer just the videos, if you prefer, instead of things being kind of more subject-based like these units have, if it helps you to have a specific action. So maybe instead of videos and weekly Sparks, we have a video and then a PDF lesson that's like telling you a specific project to do, if you find that motivating, because I personally find that motivating in a lot of classes that I take. So if you could let me know what has been helpful in the class for you and what hasn't been as helpful, and if you'd rather have like the more expensive class with the same amount of content as this year, which we've also done a lot of bonus stuff this year, like in the style unit, there was a bunch of bonus videos, or the challenge unit there. I mean, that could have been a whole class in itself with the daily videos. And I'm hoping that we would do that again next year. Or if you would rather it not hit the bank as hard and be less expensive, but a little bit lighter on the content. So if you all have feedback for me for that, I would really appreciate it. And then that'll help me figure out what I'm going to do, because I'm going to start working on January's content, hopefully in October. I saw Jennifer had another question. I thought this might come up. Okay. Jennifer says there's been a lot of talk lately on Paper Clipping Roundtable and the Scrap Gals podcast about having too many albums. I know you've talked about not worrying about having too many albums. Do you ever feel like your important stories might get lost in the sheer volume of your pages? I overthink this kind of stuff clearly, but I'm making 20 or 30 pages a month, so it could be an issue. So the first part, I'll just kind of rehash in case people haven't talked to me or heard me talk about it before, that I personally don't worry about having too many albums, because I do live in a house that has enough space for them. So if I were living in a studio apartment, I might feel differently. But as it is, I don't. So I have the Kallax IKEA unit that's there behind me, and it is just the newer version of the Expedite, whatever that was. So it's basically the same, but they used a little less wood. So it's just the big shelves that have I think the cubbies are maybe like 13 by 13. So they're perfect for holding scrapbooking albums, which are a little larger than 12 by 12. And it's difficult to find furniture that holds them without them sticking over the edge. So I really love that. And right now I have 4 albums to a cube. And not all of those are filled up, especially the ones that are on the bottom. They're by year. And those are older albums that I'm consistently adding things to here and there. And right now it is albums, and it's also holding a lot of supplies. So later on, I'll just move my supplies around, and eventually it'll be only albums. And it will take me several years, even going through 4 albums a year, to fill that up entirely. And once it does, I would just buy another one and put it in a different room, and maybe just have the more recent years or the albums that I'm working on in here, and then have the rest of those albums in a different space. But if I think about how much I value the memories that are in there, and I really don't see myself in a lifetime filling up more than 2 of these. Like, I feel more than comfortable dedicating like 2 shelves this size to my albums in my home. It's totally worth it for me. As for things getting buried, so I don't really think of some stories as more important than the others. Like, things that are, like, I think that for me, the everyday stuff is what's the most important. There isn't kind of a single most important thing. So like, even when a major life change happens, that's extremely important. But the one page about that might not be the most important thing to me. The change that the page that says, hey, this change has happened, like, hey, we have a foster baby now, or hey, I got married, or hey, we graduated college. Like, those are really important milestones. But all of the everyday stuff that follows that is going to show that that life change happened. It's like that life change in action. So I don't, so even the important things, they can't really get lost because they're still being shown over and over again, if that makes sense. And then if there are photos that I really love or stories that I really love, I do things in my album to differentiate them, which is one of the reasons that, in addition to pocket scrapbooking, I still do traditional scrapbooking, because when you're flipping through a bunch of pocket pages, those traditional pages are going to stick out a little bit more. So that traditional page is still going to get lost in the albums as a whole, but in the context of that year, then that important thing to me sticks out. And because I do have them, even though I don't scrapbook necessarily always chronologically, I have them organized roughly chronologically. So if I want to find an important thing, then I just have to remember what year that thing occurred in. So, so I'll find that pretty easily. And then if it's important because it's something that I want someone else to know, then I might consider making a mini book for that person. Like if I wanted to, like I have pages that are kind of like love letters to my kids, which is another thing I don't share. I forgot to mention that I don't share like the really emotional stuff. Like if I'm writing specifically to another person to let them know how I feel about them, then I don't generally share about that because that's for them and me. And I'm uncomfortable sharing really emotional stuff in general, like even with people that I'm close to. Like not that I don't like tell my family that I love them and everything. It's just like it's hard for me to discuss my own feelings, so I'm gonna just do that to the people that the feelings are for, not to everybody necessarily. So that's another thing I don't share. But anyway, if I wanted something like that, then I would probably make a mini album. So I've been working on a mini album that my husband and I shared our 10-year anniversary this year, and I've been working on a mini album that has a picture of us from each year we've been married, and then like little notes to him. So so that's important to me, not because it's to him. So then I made something that is specifically for him, and I do the same kind of things for my kids. Like I'll make things that are specifically for them, because the scrapbooking as a whole, I do it for me, like my family enjoys it, but I do it to record my life, and because I enjoy it, and because if I ever get dementia, I want to be able to look back and see what my life is like. And it also helps me. I don't remember very much about what happens in my life without scrapbooking. So it's almost like I feel like I get extra life almost, because it's I can see what I'm doing day to day that would otherwise just completely fade, and I can see how full my life is, whereas otherwise if I was just looking back on it, maybe it wouldn't seem that way. So it's mostly I think of it as a gift to myself, and because I'm interested in the everyday stuff, I don't worry about it getting lost. But if you are worried about getting specific things lost, then you might consider having one scrapbook that is your most important stories. So that way, and you can kind of mark it as such, and that can also be your thing that you save if for some reason you can't save everything else. So you could have kind of a milestones or important scrapbook that is separated from the other things. That is an option. Michelle says, I like the idea of a weekly spark. I was overwhelmed by the daily challenges in August. I haven't taken the time to go back and look. Also, in terms of price, I think this was an excellent value and a lot of content for the price. Thank you very much, Michelle, for having that input. Yeah, and as far as the weekly sparks go, I wasn't able to get as ahead of the class as I wanted to, because we didn't know that the foster baby was coming when she was. So, and it took us a long time to get into a routine. So that's kind of been a source of stress for me, because I want you guys to have really good content, and I want it to be on time, and I feel proud of the content, and I think that it's always good, but it hasn't always been on time. And I really appreciate you all being patient with me for that, but it really is just because I don't want to rush things just because of an arbitrary schedule that I set up. I want to make sure that it's going to be good. And so that's another thing. I also tend to make it more complicated than it needs to be. Like when I was at the beginning of the year, when I was planning the weekly sparks, they were not long blog posts like they are. I was planning something more simple, but then I got ideas and I was excited to share them, and then they took a lot longer than I thought they would. So, which is all great, but I do worry about that. Like it's a year-long class, so there will be times where I'll be inconsistent about the time. And so if I'm calling it a weekly spark, and then instead it's 3 posts at the end of the month, it's still the same amount of content. It's just not necessarily weekly. I want to make sure I'm delivering on what I promise is basically it. And then if the challenges were overwhelming, we can also see I can do that as a separate a separate class next year. It was just really fun to do, and it has garnished the most class participation for the year. So obviously it was motivating for you all, which was definitely my goal with that. Let's see, we have 10 more minutes, it looks like. So if anybody else has anything to ask, go ahead and get those in. Amy says, I like Stephanie Makes and some others who post on Studio Calico. I like Stephanie Makes as well. Yes, she does great things. It's also, I get people mixed up, which is why I didn't list everyone that I liked, but is that who is making a whole different album every month, like a little mini Project Life album every month? Is that Stephanie? Am I getting people mixed up? Trying to look on her blog. Maybe this is not the time to do that. You guys can tell me if you know who it is. Then that is great. And then there are also people whose styles are really not anything like mine, but I still really enjoy, like Amy Tangerine. Her Project Life spreads are much busier than mine are and have lots of little bits. And Shamel, her layouts are similar, though like they kind of go for different colors, but I really enjoy watching both of them, even though I'm not necessarily gonna emulate any of that. Jennifer, Michelle said to Jennifer about the albums, I don't think there's such a thing as too much. Like, I feel like that. I might not feel like that later on in my life, but I feel like that now just because there's a lot that and I'm also going to definitely be making different amounts of things in different amounts of my life. Like, I feel like my life is kind of chaotic and hectic, and there's always a bunch of things going on right now. So there's a lot of things that I want to remember, and maybe I will have some years that are more calm, and because they are more calm, I will not have as many things that I want to document, and that will be fine. Let's see. Oh, and though I do, okay, so Jennifer also commented back to Michelle that she liked how I said that everyday stories are my favorite, so they're the most important. So that's almost not entirely true, because some of the stuff that, so the little mini adventures are actually my favorite. So like when my family goes to Planet Comic-Con, or my friends come in to visit, or the Maker Faire every year. So those are my favorite things to do. So they end up being my favorite things to document and look back on, because they're so much fun. So that's still kind of everyday stuff, but I do like those a lot more than like the weeks where it snowed a lot and I'm a hermit and I don't want to go anywhere. So that's just I don't know. I have more fun making those. So the Nerd Adventures are probably my favorite. Okay. Stephanie Byron, aka Stephanie Makes, that does those. So Jennifer says, I love how things were structured next year, but I really liked the idea of a downloadable PDF for the lessons. Yes, that's something that I want to try to do next year, is having PDFs. And I'm also going to retroactively go back and do that for this year. So you will eventually be able to have PDFs for these lessons, not the weekly Sparks, but like the main units. Those might take me quite a while to make. But when each of the units is released on its own sometime next year, you all will also have access to that, like the PDFs of this older information. But yeah, I would definitely want to do those, because I think that they're also really helpful. And it's also, for me, I know that when I'm taking class, I'm much more likely to, usually the first time I'm watching a video, I'm just watching it to enjoy it. I'm not actually going to do what the person is talking about then. And it is helpful to have a PDF going back the second time to actually do the thing, so I don't have to watch the whole video again, I can just search the PDF for the parts of it that that I need to remember to actually take action. So I do think that those are really helpful, and that's something that I want to do as time goes on. Let's see what other. Oh, and Amy also asked if we're attempting to adopt our foster baby, and we don't know if she becomes available for adoption. Then that is our plan, but we're not sure if she will be or not. So, okay, I was right. Stephanie is making a different mini Project Life album every month. Stephanie makes, and that is a cool thing to do. I really like that. Let's see. Make sure that we don't have anybody commenting in the classroom. Also, if you have anything else, get in now. And if you are watching this later on, if you're watching the recording of the this video, and you have questions, and you can ask them in the comments, and I'll try to come back and of the YouTube video, and I'll try to come back and still talk about them. Laura says hello from the UK, and Eva says hello from Sweden. I'm so excited that we have people from all over the world. Like, it just makes me think about how the internet is magic. It is so cool that we can come together across continents and talk about something that we love, because sometimes it's hard to find people who are close to you. Ooh, I missed one. Anna. Most scrapbookers seem to feel guilty all the time if it's not for being behind. Not a fan of that expression. It's for buying supplies that they never use. Sometimes I feel like I don't feel like a real scrapbooker because I don't have these guilty feelings. It's supposed to be a fun hobby, not a burden. I agree with you, Anna. I think that it pops up so much because just I don't think everyone feels that way, certainly, but I think that when you are teaching things and things like podcasts or blog posts, a lot of times they are posed around common problem areas. It's a lot easier to talk about things that people struggle with and possible solutions for that than it is to talk about things that everybody like just loves and is enthusiastic about, because you automatically have kind of an outline for what to do if you have a problem and you're trying to find a solution for it. So I think because of that, I think that it seems like people have more problems with things like that than they necessarily do. Just because if it's marked as a common trouble area, then people are going to comment on it a lot. But yeah, I don't feel that way, because we know I have like my document now, make later mantra. And so if I get behind, I know that it's because there's a lot behind. There's a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. And if I keep documenting and keep writing things down and keep taking pictures, then eventually it'll calm down, and I'm really going to want to scrapbook because I have the time to do it. And then I can go back and document those busier times. And I think it's really important to stay flexible. So like this year I've been printing at home, and right now my printer is evil. And so I'm trying to batch edit photos and order them. And it's a little harder to motivate myself to do them because I have to wait longer before I can actually start scrapbooking. But then I can have just like kind of a big gorge fest with a big stack of photos doing it. So I'm back to kind of being intentionally behind because of the way that I'm changing my process, because I have to save up for a new printer before I can go back to my regular process. So being flexible is important for that. And then as for the buying supplies they never use, so yeah, I think it makes sense to have a stash of supplies because if you're the kind of person who just sticks to one core kit and pocket scrapbooks that way or does project life that way, then it's not really a problem for you. But if you're trying to match things based on color or theme or design, then you need more well, not need, but like you'll probably want to have more stuff to choose from because not everything's gonna kind of fit in with it. So when I replenished my stash and bought like way more than I usually do last month, and that was because I was running low. But running low to me is not going to be the same as running low for other people, because I had enough stuff when I was running low to definitely make like probably 100 pocket pages, but I didn't have enough stuff to make 100 pocket pages the way that I like to make them. So I needed to replenish in certain areas. And so that's kind of how I see stuff amounts. Like I want to make sure that I'm only buying things that I'm using. And I especially pay attention to that when I'm subscribing to something. If I find that I'm subscribing to something and it's coming to me constantly and I'm not using it, then I don't want to be subscribing to it anymore, because it is just going to like build up and bury me. But I am prolific enough that I make more than I buy. So that works. But I do think that for some people, buying products becomes what they do instead of scrapbooking, because they feel like scrapbooking, but they feel like they don't have time to scrapbook. So then they go look on a scrapbooking site and then they buy something, and then that makes them like that scrapbooking kind of need, like doing something related. It fulfills that. And then they don't do anything. And I also don't think that that's something to feel guilty about. But I mean, if that's happening to you, then you might want to recognize it and recognize that that's what's happening. And then the other thing, I had to stop following certain companies on social media because there was like so much hype surrounding things and trying to get you to buy things, and like quick deals where you had to make decisions quickly, or I'd see things and feel like I wanted them, that if I didn't know they existed, I'd be just fine. So following fewer companies, product companies on social media has kind of helped me make decisions better based on what I think I'll actually use, instead of what I just think is cute. And so that's what I don't know. That's my big shopping tangent, but you started it with the shopping tangent. Carrie says, batch editing and ordering photos is the bane of my existence. Yeah, it's not my favorite. It's definitely not my favorite part, Carrie, but I have been marathoning Bones season 9, so that keeps me happy while I do it, because I haven't been watching very much television lately, and so it's a way to like watch some things that I have been on my to watch list that I haven't been able to get to. So I'm looking at it like that. And I really want to put in a big order at Persnickety Prints, but and have them shipped. But right now that I haven't been working far ahead enough for the things that I need photos for. So I've been ordering kind of smaller batches of photos at Costco and then picking them up the day of the next day, because I'm only making enough for like 5 spreads or layouts at a time, which is still a lot, but I'm not adding up like a whole month's worth at this point. And I only Persnickety Prints is my favorite for photo quality, but because they have $5 flat rate shipping, if I have a tiny order, then I don't use them, because then the shipping is more than the order, and I can't do that. But I'm thinking about ordering my project life photo, week in the life photos through them, which I totally thought I'd have done by now, by the way, but I went on a surprise weekend trip to Austin, and my friends from Denver came randomly over a weekend as a surprise. So I had 2 whole weekends that I thought I wasn't going to be doing much of anything, be super busy. So So I've not done week in the life yet, but the photos and words are there, so it does not matter when I make them. See, that was Carrie. Okay, so I'm going to give you all a second because there's a slight delay to get in any last questions or comments. And Erin says, I've made more pages than any previous year, so I think this class is working. Yay! Hooray, Erin. I'm so excited. I'm so happy to hear that. Let me look in the comments because I feel like there's something that I said that we talked about, but then I forgot. We didn't really talk about the photography unit, but that's fine because the video isn't up yet. So maybe there's not as much to talk about, but there is a post that went up Friday about photographing your layouts. One of the weekly sparks was about photographing your layouts. So that might help you as you're photographing a bunch for the for our 500 shares goal. And tomorrow there's a weekly spark post that's going up about like kind of compensating for not as great photos with design. So I have a week where it's like just iPhone photos and like they're fine. I like the photos, but they're not like amazing and like really sticky outy. So I talk about how in that spread I used the design to kind of bounce out the photos that I had to work with. And then it will be Wednesday when we have the photography unit video. And then next month we're doing a journaling unit. And I think we'll mostly be focusing on kind of telling deeper and more detailed stories because I've had a lot of requests from you all on fitting those in. So photography this week and then journaling next. So I'm excited to see all of those. And I actually, if you have suggestions of things that you want to see for November and December, I have like 5 possible units that I want to use for those. So I don't know which ones yet we'll actually be covering and which ones will be for next year. So if there are things that you definitely want to see, those are still just penciled and not inked in. So you are welcome to ask or make suggestions. Okay. Oh, 2 replies. Carrie says that she likes the marathon idea while she's batching photos. Maybe that will make it feel like a treat instead of a chore. Gotta love bones too, says Michelle. Yeah. So I've been doing that. And then also I've been doing it at times when my kids aren't around, so I can watch things that they can't watch, which is fantastic because we watch stuff as a family pretty frequently, but my watching inappropriate television time is very limited. So that is making editing photos feel like a luxury. But I'm also so while I wait for them to upload and things, I'm also kind of multitasking when I'm batch ordering photos. So like I'll be drawing, this is for the class that's coming up, but I'll be drawing like little sketches of what to do next, or like going and flipping through my albums and kind of seeing what breaks are in there that I need to fill in. So that also makes it so that I don't feel like I'm just sitting at my desk doing the same thing over and over again the whole time, because there are other little tasks that are related to ordering photos that I can do, so that it makes it kind of more of a creative exercise so that I don't feel as bad. Oh, Facebook is not notifying me when you guys are commenting on each other's stuff in Facebook instead of... So if there's questions in there, I didn't catch all of them. So Jennifer answered Anna on the scrapbooker's guilt thing. And whenever I think of scrapper's guilt, I try to find a way to compare it to golf or some other hobby. Do golfers feel guilty for spending money on their hobby? Do golfers feel guilty for not leaving a legacy of golf for their children? Do golfers feel bad if they get behind on their scores? And Anna says she does the same. I can't really come up with any other hobby you're supposed to feel guilty of like this. No, I do. I definitely agree with you all. And I like, maybe we don't want to get into like sexism and feminism at the end of this video because it's like a bigger thing. But I do think that like guilt that is put on women about how they are supposed to spend their time and feeling like pushing them to feel guilty about spending time on themselves and spending money on themselves instead of like thinking about the other people in their lives and how they're supporting them. I do think that contributes really heavily to why there's like so many problems with guilt in the scrapbooking hobby. But yeah, the way, I mean, I spend as much time on it as I choose to, and I prioritize it, but I also have other priorities. So if I can't get to it, then I don't feel guilty. But if I'm not doing something else that I'm like supposed to be doing, like there are pencil shavings all over my floor right here because my kids dumped out a crayon box and then picked up the crayons, but I still have to vacuum. I'm not doing that right now. I'm scrapbooking because I'm prioritizing the scrapbooking. And so like it's gonna annoy me every time I look over there, and I'll get to it eventually, but like not during this time. So yeah, there's no reason to feel guilty about that, about taking time for yourself, because it's good for overall mental health and well-being. So, and we do, my family kind of try to balance things out. Like right now, my husband took our kids to his parents. Or Eliza's here with me because she chose to stay back and clean a room, which is like a miracle. So he's going to engage in his hobby a little bit over there. He brought his quadcopter. He's been building them. And he's working on a racing one. So like that's where his money for hobbies goes. And we both also try to like make money to support our hobbies specifically. So it's not coming out of like our general family budget, and we like kind of like try to stay pretty even on like who gets woohoo time and who gets and like how much money we're allocating to each of us for those kinds of things. So so it's helpful for me to have kind of a system in my family where that is built in, where we like recognize that we each need our own time. And then a lot of times in the evening after the kids are in bed, since our offices are both in our room, we'll like both be like, sometimes we just spend the whole evening together and don't do anything, but sometimes we're like each spending time on our hobbies, but we're like in the same room. So that's really nice, and that's what works for me. Time and money management within a family wise. Yeah, but you're right. There's no other hobby where you're supposed to feel guilty. I mean, so sometimes people will ask me like how I find time for this, but I don't actually spend a whole lot of time scrapbooking. Sometimes I'll take a day and I'll batch and do a whole lot, but usually it's like a couple hours a week, probably like definitely less than 5 hours a week. But I know people who watch football during football season more than 5 hours a week, and like nobody judges them. So it really all comes down to like other people's perception. So yeah, don't feel guilty. Scrapbook, be happy. Okay, so that is maybe a weird thing to end on, but I'm going to double check our YouTube comments, and it looks like we don't have anything else new, so that will be our wrap for today. I will be cheering you on as we get closer to our 500 layout shared before the end of September goal, but I'm not counting until next weekend. I said 3rd or 4th, but let's go ahead and say October 4th. So if you need to fudge it and make some stuff on Saturday, I'm not mad. It's fine. But I will sometime in the afternoon on October 4th be counting them up, and then we're done. And I will be adding spreads, or I'm counting the things that I just made for this class, but I can't show you, so I'll like put a sneak peek in. But I'll be counting my things as well, and let's see if we can do it, and we'll get to that 500 spread shared goal. And if you all want to also talk about what you want that bonus unit to be, because I have like 4 ideas, but if you guys want to choose what that unit is, then I'm open to that as well. And thank you all for joining in on this chat, and I want to thank the students for taking the class and for participating, and thank you everyone who shared spreads for the 500 layout shared goal so far. It's been so amazing seeing everything that you do, and it's been motivating for me, so I hope that it's been motivating for you as well. And I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.